preparation for this Sunday's message, I was reading this morning from 1 Kings chapter 19. Elijah is one of my favorite characters in the Bible. I can't wait to meet him when I get to heaven. And chapter 19 of 1 Kings is Elijah's life when he's toward the end of his time as a prophet. And he's discouraged. And some of the signs that we have, the symptoms of his discouragement, in verse 3, it talks about his being afraid. And then verses 3 and 4, it talks about him running a long way into the wilderness to be just by himself. In fact, he's to the point of being suicidal. In the 4th verse, he's talking to God. He says, I make a request that I might die. In verse 5, he's not eating right. He's sleeping all the time. Some of the symptoms of being really discouraged. His discouragement was brought about by the fact that not everyone accepted his work as a prophet. In fact, just one chapter earlier, he defeats the false prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. But not everybody liked that, including Jezebel. She was out for his head. And he just couldn't handle that. He was in a deep place of despair and discouragement. But I believe this chapter also gives us the cure for discouragement. God meets him out in the wilderness and says to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" In fact, he says that twice in verse 9 and in verse 13. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah shows that he's a little bit thinking negatively about life. He says, "I, in all of Israel, I'm the only one left that hasn't bowed the knee to Baal." And that wasn't true. God corrects his thinking, tells him later that there's 7,000 others that haven't bowed their knees to Baal. And what God does, I love what he does. He turns Elijah around. He sends him out from the wilderness back into the city where people were. And he gives him a friend that will be his friend till the end of his days. And that friend's name is Elisha. He becomes Elijah's successor. And the two of them do ministry together to the end of Elijah's day. So, I don't know where you are. We're going to be looking at Elisha this coming Sunday, and how it all comes about that Elijah gives a portion of his spirit to Elisha. And it's going to be, I think, a great Sunday. But what I want you to get out of this today is if you're discouraged, if you have some of those same symptoms as disengaging from people, eating abnormally, sleeping abnormally, maybe even wishing to the point of what's the use of living, God's remedy is to turn you around, help you to engage with people again, give you a friend that can walk with you through life. And this is one of the most practical chapters in all the Bible. I encourage you to read it for yourself, 1 Kings chapter 19, and we'll see you this Sunday.